Okay, in the second video of our series, what I'd like to do is teach you the fundamentals of the CAGED system. Now, I think this is really important, and I'll give you an illustration of how important it is. I was actually in a hotel just very recently, and this guy walks up to me and he goes, "Hey, are you Dan Denley?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And it turns out that this guy knows who I am, and he was asking, well, you know, I'm playing this song and everything, and there's this one chord that I can't play. I think he said it was like a B flat chord. You know, he's like, it's up on the neck of the guitar, and it's really hard and everything, and I can't really get it. So I was like, well, why don't you just play one of the other 4 versions of that B flat? He was like, huh? And I was like, well, you know, you can play every chord in at least 5 ways. And he was like, no, I didn't know that. And I was like, dude, this is called the CAGED system. You need to know that. So what I like to do, I found out, you know, that's actually very important. And what, you know, the value of it is that you can take any chord, okay, and play it in 5 different ways once you understand the CAGED system. So I'm going to teach that to you right now. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the CAGED system by starting out with the open position chords, C, A, G, and C, A, G, E, and D. Yes, I can spell CAGED. All right, so the C chord goes like this. Okay, now obviously I'm going to give you the tab for all this. So I'm going to move kind of fast because we're trying to condense a lot of information to one short video. So we're going to start with a C, open C chord like this, simple cowboy chord. Then your open A, then G, okay, then E, and then D. Okay, simple open position, what we call cowboy chords. Now, you can take each one of those chords and move it up the fretboard. Let me show you how to do that. Start out with C, right? Well, which notes are open in that C chord? You've got E and you got G. So your first and third strings are open. So if we take that C chord and we move it up, doesn't sound very good, right? That's because the G and the E strings, sorry, the G and the E strings, they are not in that C sharp chord. Okay? So what we have to do is we have to bring those open strings up with us. We have to take them along for the ride. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you to rearrange your fingers for your C major chord. Most of the time you play like this, right? I'm going to ask you to rearrange your fingers and go like this. Okay? And then all we do is we just move it up 1 fret to here, and then we bar, okay, the G string and your E string. And then we get this sound. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you this is an easy chord to make, because it's not. It's going to take a little practice, but if you work on those finger strength exercises that I gave you in the first video, then I think this will get a lot easier. So the concept is, all we're going to do is take this C chord, move it up a fret, and then we have this, which happens to be a C sharp. Then here's D, E flat or D sharp. Those are enharmonic equivalents. That means they're the same chord with 2 different names. Then here we have the E chord. Move it on up to F, F sharp, G, and then what we normally refer to as A flat, and then A. And that's back to our A here, except it's just an octave higher. Okay, so that's the C part of it. Now let's do the A chord. So you normally play an A chord like this, right? I'm going to ask you to move your fingers to this position, and then we're just going to move that up 1 fret. Okay? So now I'm barring the 5th and the 1st string. Okay? And I get this sound. Now, if you find that difficult, here's a little secret for you. What you can do is just drop out this top note, just forget about it, and then just take your ring finger and just lay it down and bar all 3 strings on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th string. And then you have this. So basically it's like a power chord, but then there's a couple extra notes here. And then I can easily move that up the fretboard. And then can go ahead and just move it on up as far as you want. Of course, remembering that once you get to the 12th fret, you're actually going to be repeating the notes. Okay, so open A, and then this is also A. So once I get to the 12th fret, I start repeating again. All right, so that's the A part of it. Let's talk about the G chord. Now, this one is probably the most difficult of the 5. Okay, so don't let this freak you out. I'm going to show you a little trick to actually make it a little bit easier for you. But you take that G chord and you slide it up, then you're going to rearrange your fingers to this. Okay, so again, in this chord, we're actually going to drop out that top note. We're not going to play that top string. We're just going to move up our fingers and then rearrange them like this. And notice I'm not playing that top E string because that's not really in the chord. I'm just playing the 2nd through the 6th string. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. So drop out that top string. Okay, and then we have, and it just goes on up. Okay, and that's the G part of it. Now, talk about open E chord, right? Like this. And this is the way I want you to finger it. Okay, and the reason is because the next thing we're going to do is slide it up. And we're going to bar everything on the 1st fret. Got that? Then, this is called your classic root 6 bar chord. Okay, root 6 means that the root note, in this case F, that's the note that the chord is named after, that is going to be on the 6th string. So that's why it's called a root 6 bar chord. This would be a root 6 F sharp bar chord, root 6 G, root 6 A flat. And a lot of times people don't worry about saying root 6, but I was just doing it to let you know the technical term for it. But a lot of times people just say, you know, G bar chord. Okay, cool. A flat, A, B flat, B, okay, C, C sharp or D flat, D, E flat, and then E. All right, so we've made it through C, A, G, and E. Now let's do our open position D chord. Now for this one, you're going to need to rearrange your fingers again, and we're going to play it like this. Because when I move it up, I'm going to bar the 5th and, the 5th and the 4th string. See that? So it's just like a D chord, except I'm just sliding it up. And then, oops. Okay, and you can take it on up. It gets a little more difficult the higher on the fretboard you go. So that is it, man. That is basically the whole fundamentals of the CAGED system, okay? So you could take just like a simple little E chord, like, so those are my 5 forms of my E chord, right? This would be the E form. This would be the D form of my E chord. Here's my C form of the E chord. A form of still an E chord, and then that would be my G form of my E chord. Does that make sense? So I took that one chord, E, and I can play it in 5 different positions on the fretboard. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Okay, and I'll show you a close-up of that progression of the E coming up next. Okay, here's the close-ups of that CAGED system. Now remember we started out with a C chord like this, right? And I ask you to rearrange your fingers like this. That way you can slide it up and you can transpose this chord into another chord. Transpose is just a big fancy word that means to move into another key. So here we go, we're in C. Then if we slide this up and then bar, that's our form for our C chord. Okay, that's our C form of the C sharp chord. This is the C form. You can see it retains its shape, but now the root note is D. So this is actually a D chord using the C form. Okay, it's just going to move on up. So that's the concept there. Here's your A chord. All right, and now what we can do is simply move that up 1 fret and bar everything here. Okay. And of course, if that's difficult for you, you can just drop out the top string and fret it like this. Okay, so that's the A form. Then we have our G form. And remember, on this chord form, we don't play that top note. So I'm just going to actually rearrange my fingers like this, and then move it up 1 step. Or I should say a half step. And then that just moves up. Okay, now what we're going to do is, we have our E form, right? Here's our E chord. If I flip it around like this, then move it up a half step, and then bar the 1st fret. That's my root 6 string bar chord. And by the way, if that bar chord is really difficult for you to play, you can just drop out the 6th string and just play it like this. Okay, still the same chord. Actually, you can just play the top strings like this. Still, that's that E form there. All right, and then of course your D chord. And for that, we're going to rearrange our fingers, move everything up a step or a half step, and then we have. Now, of course, you can drop out that 5th string as well, and just keep the top 4 strings. Okay, so that is your caged system. So if you liked this video, I want to ask you for a favor, which is to click a like button below and then post your comment. And thanks so much, my friend, and the 3rd video will be out soon. So keep an eye on your email inbox for that, and check it out when it's ready. See you soon.